The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, well, welcome everyone to this meeting of the virtual CICS user group. I'm Trevor Eddles. I'm CEO of iTechEd Limited. We're a mainframe consultancy, analysis and technical authoring organisation. We're the people responsible for the content on the virtual CICS website, and we produce the newsletter. And if you're new, our website is fundy.com/virtual CICS. That's all one word. And if you've got friends who use IMS, we also look after the virtual IMS user group. Okay, then, first of all, let me run through the agenda for this meeting. As usual, most of it will be taken up with a presentation. And today our guest presenter is Keith Banham. He's Manager Research and Development at Macro 4, which is a division of Unicom Global. And his presentation is called Multi-Factor Authentication for ZOS and CICS, What, Why and How, part of your GDPR compliance strategy. A copy of the slides from this presentation will be on our website later today. And if you missed any of our previous meetings, you can download copies of those presentations from our website. And you can listen again to the whole presentation. There's a link on the resources page of the user group website. Following Keith's presentation and any questions you have for him, we'll move on to the latest CICS news and the latest CICS related articles. Feedback requests is there to remind me to ask you for your feedback about this virtual meeting. Then I'll give you the dates and times for the next couple of meetings. So that's the plan. I'm anticipating that the whole thing will last for about 50 minutes today. Okay, as I just said, today's presentation is from Keith Banham. Keith has worked in IT for over 35 years and is the mainframe R&D manager at Macro 4. Keith started as an assembler programmer at a major bank, and during his 30-odd years at Macro 4, he's worked on many of the company's solutions for application lifecycle management, application performance management, document management, and session management. He's responsible for driving the modernization of these solutions by building web, Eclipse, and mobile interfaces, and architecting cross-platform solutions using Unicom's open systems and IBM I capabilities. Okay, Keith, I'd like to thank you very much for being with us today. And what I'm going to do now is pass control of the meeting over to you. So let me just do that now. Right, we can see your screen.
Right, thanks, Trevor. Welcome everyone to this session. Hopefully you'll find it interesting as we go through this. As Trevor said, we're going to try and cover off and look at multi-factor authentication, how it relates to the ZOS and CICS security, and with GDPR coming into effect in May this year, how you can use MFA as part of that compliance strategy. So, the agenda. Well, the first thing to look at, of course, is single sign-on. Now, here's a good old CICS sign-on screen that everyone's obviously seen before. I say CICS because I'm in the UK, so translate that into CICS for anyone who's from overseas. I do apologise. So yeah, CICS screen, user ID, password. This has been like this forever. I started work back in the early 80s, signed on to CICS, and this is the same screen that I saw back then. It hasn't changed. You may have put passphrases in now if you have catered for that, which is 100 characters rather than the password of 8 characters. But here lies the problem. The password is just 8 characters. How many people use the same password and put 01 on if it's January, 02 on if it's February, or they write it on the whiteboard, We even had a customer who asked a request for one of our products where their users could share the same user ID and password and actually jump between machines. And we were like, well, we can, but that's your security compromised. But you know, this is the world we've been in. I think because the mainframe has always been pretty much a black box, it's in the data center, it's secure. Everyone assumes that everyone who's using it is IT literate, and therefore, you know, it's okay. It's only Bob from IT that uses it. It's fine. But that's changed now. So you've got to change the way that we log on to our mainframes. And of course, accessing the mainframes also changed. As I say, it used to be green screen, but it's not anymore. You've got tablets, you've got mobile devices, you know, vendors and businesses are now putting these applications so that you can do it on the move. You know, you can use your iPad in meetings and access the mainframe and drag down information. So now suddenly you've got these mobile devices, and of course you can use those off-premise. So you might be using that from home, or you might be out and about. You might be in a hotel, or you might be at an internet cafe. Well, who's tracing the Wi-Fi in these places? Who's got access to that? Now suddenly you're putting in this fairly straightforward 8-character password. You hope the connection's secure, but are you really sure what's going on there? So again, if anyone gets your password, then obviously they can get in. And of course, the mainframe, as I said, they're putting web front ends on. It's not just IT people that use this. We have one customer who's got 120,000 end users. Well, they're not all IT people. They're just end users. They're in the end office across America, this particular country, and they use it. They just log onto the mainframe, enter data, extract data, get quotes, put in new business, etc., etc. They're not IT people. They're just business people going about their business. And it's those sort of people. Maybe they only log in a couple of times a week. They're the type of people who are going to put the password on a whiteboard behind them because they can never remember it because they don't do it very often. Or they share it. They give it, oh, don't worry. Oh, I haven't got access to that. Oh, don't worry. Use my user ID and password. It'll be okay. That type of thing, I'm sure, goes on. And of course, if someone can get into the mainframe, then they can get at all sorts of sensitive data. You know, the mainframe, the big thing about the mainframe is that it's got all the data. You know, we've probably seen lots of stats about how many billions and trillions of bytes of data are held on the mainframe these days. And getting access to that from other systems is key for, you know, modernization and digital transformation strategy, etc. And of course, you know, we take an example. Here's a product here. It accesses the JES spool. Well, once you get into the JES spool, you can look at all the output. And of course, the output might be your statement runs, your financial runs, you know, payrolls. It could be anything that's on there. So, you know, you've got to be able to protect all this from people who want to get hold of your sensitive data. And of course, in Europe, along came GDPR compliance. And of course, it doesn't just affect European companies, it affects everyone who has access to any staff that, or any people's information, personal data that belongs to a European citizen. So even if you're in America, for example, if you're a global company, then obviously this will affect you as well. And of course, there's other compliances around the world for different countries that all have bearing. And I'm not going to go through GDPR because it's been around a while and I'm sure there's lots of websites that will tell you, but the two key factors are the bottom 2 points on here. Tougher fines. That's what's come along with GDPR, and we're talking big fines based on your annual turnover, not your profit, your turnover. And I read a report when this was coming out, and it was all about compliance and auditing. And the report said that if you have a data breach, then the auditors will come in to work out how much they're going to fine you. And if it's a mainframe, or actually any system, and they come in and they look at how you're signing on, and you haven't implemented multi-factor authentication, they're not going to be very happy at all. Because they're going to ask you, why haven't you implemented multi-factor authentication? It's been around for several years. Why have you waited? Why haven't you implemented this? And the tone of the report was basically that the auditors will basically say that you're not taking security seriously, and therefore you'll get a tougher and a bigger fine. Just something to be aware of. So, what is multi-factor authentication? Well, what it's not is biometrics. This was very popular at one point, and everyone thought this was going to be the answer to secure sign-on, your fingerprint and your eye scan. And then you had all the scaremongering that people are going to come along, cut off your fingers and gouge out your eyes to get in. But of course, this data is no good. This is static data. Fingerprints don't change. Eye scans don't change. They're the same. If you get my fingerprint and you get it in a digital form, noughts and ones basically, you can be me for the rest of your life, and there's nothing I can do about it because my fingerprint is never going to change. So static data like that is no better than a password. It's just fixed, so it's no good. And again, you don't know who's line sniffed or traced that, you know, any data packets that are going around. And once they get hold of this information, they can be you. So what did IBM do about this? Well, IBM produced a new piece of software called multi-factor authentication for ZOS. It's a new started task. In fact, there's two started tasks, and we'll come to the second one in a minute. There's this one, which is the main one, and then there's actually a web server part of this product as well. It's heavily integrated with RACF. Now, there are other multi-factor products out there, and obviously RACF, you might be using CA ACF2 or Top Secret, which is fine. We're quite confident that CA have got their act together on this, so if you're using those products, that's fine as well. But for the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to stick to the tried and trusted IBM products. So what does this give you? This gives you a one-time password generator. Basically, what you need is something that's going to be short-lived, for example, 60 seconds, and it's going to be valid just once. So you can use it once, and that's it. You put it in as your password, and away you go. 60 seconds later, it's invalid, can't be used. So if anyone gets hold of it, you know, they're going to be fairly quick in order to use it. And of course, you need something to generate this password. So there's additional hardware and software. And here we're going to have a quick look at the various options available. The first one is the RSA software. And again, you'd have to install another piece of software, the RSA Authentication Manager on ZOS. So you've got another started task coming along. And bottom right there, you can see the old RSA fob. These have been around for many years, but obviously RSA have other equipment now. They have a pin pad, and you can also have a website that you can go to generate this code. And the quotes there, something you have, two things you know, they come out in the IBM books. This is how it gets described, and these are the sort of things you need for a multi-factor authentication. And the way this works is that this keypad is obviously, or fob, has been assigned to the authentication manager, so he's aware of it, and every 60 seconds this is going to give you a new number. If you're using the RSA pin pad, then you'd have to put in a pin number into the pin pad, and then it would generate a number. And then that number goes straight forward into your password field. It's fairly straightforward, but you've got to do it within the time frame of 60 seconds or so. It also supports the touch token for ZOS, which is the Apple device. So if you've got an Apple phone, then you can install an app on your iOS device. You then register that phone to the website that comes with the touch token for ZOS software. Once it's been registered, there's a handshake of certificates, and basically this is where your thumb or your fingerprint does come in. You can actually put your fingerprint on the Apple phone. It will then pop up with a nice token for you, and then you put that token into the password field on the mainframe. So These were the first ones that IBM supported. And these are what's called in-band. So these are the first two. So you've got the RSA fobs and keypads, and then you've got the Apple phone. But again, they just generate a single token that you put into the password field. So it's better, but it's still a single token. Is that multi-factor? I'm not so sure. But it is more secure than a straightforward password. There is something also called out-of-band. As I said, the multi-factor authentication for ZOS comes to another static task with a web server, and you can go to that and get up a web page. You enter your RACF credentials to log on to that, which is quite good. And in there, you can have each user has its own policy, and you can now combine different authenticators. So you could actually say, all right, I want the RSA key fob, and I want the touch token, and I want some others as well put in there. And you do that on the website. You have to, use all these devices to get all these codes that you put into the website, and eventually it gives you a token, and then you use the token back on your CICS sign-on screen, your CICS sign-on screen. And this is what the website looks like. As you can see there, you can have multiple policies for each user, if that's how you want to set it up. For this particular one here, the top policy is the touch token, so it's for the phone. So you have to go off, use the phone, get your token, stick it in here. And the second one at the bottom is a certificate, and that means there's been some handshaking between this website and your browser, and you've installed a certificate at both ends, so it definitely knows that it's you. And then you can log on, and it gives you a token, and you log on to CICS or TSO or wherever you're going to log on to the mainframe. If you're in America, then you'll be aware that the government staff and the American service people have a common access card, and this card can only be used in the out-of-band process, so using the website, and they put the card into a card reader, put in their PIN number, and then that's one of your authentications, part of your out-of-band policy. So just be aware, it fully supports that, which obviously US government's departments all insist on. Then, back in November 2017, I put this out as, I just realised, as a sort of fairly new thing. I don't know where 2018's disappeared to, because obviously this is several months old now. But they did add, when that came out, this was version 1.3, and they've added a load more factors, authentication factors. So they've added Radius, which stands for Remote Authentication Dial-in User Service, and there's a generic version of that. There's supports the SafeNet products, and obviously there's some more RSA stuff in there. And it also supports generic TOTP, which for the British people isn't top of the pops, but it is a time-based one-time password. And this now gives you support for your Android devices. We've already had Apple's devices supported, so now we've got the Android. And it also supports Microsoft Windows. And that means you've now got LDAP and Active Directory support. So now you can start having authenticators who are not on the mainframe. Before, this was mainframe software that we've installed. Now you can start talking to non-mainframe authenticators if that's what you've got set up. So if all your authentication is through LDAP, now you can use LDAP to actually do your mainframe authentication as well. And the biggest thing that they added in 1.3 was compound authentication for the in-band process. So on your sign-on screen now, as long as your application supports the passphrase field, and this is because obviously you're now being compound, you're now going to enter two tokens. You're going to put in your RACF password and the token that's come out of your other authenticator. And of course, that's going to be longer than 8 characters. So you have to have the passphrase field, which is 100 characters in order to implement this. So if you haven't got any applications that don't support passphrase, then you won't be able to have compound authentication in place. Unless, and we'll come to that later, you have another way of working. IBM's produced some really good books on this. There's a red book, but it's only based on 1.1, which is a real shame. I've spoken to IBM a couple of times about this. They do some really good work in 1.2 and especially in 1.3, and they're missing a trick here by not producing a new red book. I will be seeing a lot of the IBMers again in November, and I shall remind them again that they need to produce a new red book. And obviously, you've got the usual manual, the user guide, and the installation customization guides, which are at the 1.3 level. So, why would you want to do MFA? Well, as I've said already, with compliance, GDPR in Europe and other compliance, I think you're going to have to do it, otherwise the auditors, etc., are not going to be happy, and you may end up with fines. But the biggest reason is, why wouldn't you do it? Why haven't you done it if you haven't done it already? Passwords are not very secure. I've been doing internet banking for several years now, and the only reason I do it is because actually I have to use 4 different authenticators in order to log on to my internet banking. So it's very, very secure. I'm quite happy with it. I'm thinking, I mean, someone could get hold of all 4 pieces of information and log in as me, but the chances of it are very, very remote. So it's very, very secure. So much more secure than the straightforward 8-character password. So how would you implement this? Well, this is the old screen. This is what we've got. This is your standard mainframe logon. But is that the way you go into your mainframe? Or do you go in through a session manager? Now, I'm suspecting that most companies, most mainframe companies, have a session manager of some description in place. And they're probably already using it, and they're probably signing on once, and it brings up a whole list of sessions. Hopefully that's all been RACF controlled, so they can only see the sessions that they've got access to. And they may even be using pass tickets or other facilities within the session manager to automatically log them on to all the sessions that they need to start up first thing in the morning, etc. So, you know, session managers these days, modern ones, are quite feature rich. And I expect most of you have got one out there already. So this is the place I'm suggesting that you put your multi-factor authentication. Put it in one place. The biggest issue we've come across is that customers, it's not the IT people that are against multi-factor authentication. They are worried about the end user. If you've got hundreds or thousands of end users, you've suddenly got to roll this out. Now, that's bad enough if they've only got to log on once. But if they've got to log on 10, 20 times, because that's how many applications they start up when they log on in the morning, they're not going to be very happy. Because as you remember, it's a 60-second, maybe. That code is only valid once, so they can only log on once with that code. They've then got to wait another 60 seconds to get another code, and then they can log on to the second application. So if you've got 10 applications, TSO, CICS, IMS, printing products, financial products, etc., you've got to go all the way down, and it's going to take you, X minutes just to log on. Along comes Windows, security update, please restart your PC. Well, okay, you restart your PC, you've got to log on again 10 times with MFA. So what I'm suggesting is that you use your session manager. Sign on once with MFA into your session manager, and then use other facilities to actually log you onto the applications that hang off of that. Now, what you can do is you can change your telnet server and change the default so that the telnet server will point to your session manager, and therefore they can't get a TSO, they can't get CICS and the other applications directly. They have to go through the session manager. Put MFA on your session manager logon. once it's been authenticated via that route, you can then use other facilities. You could leave it. You could put all the other applications. There's an exclusion list that you can put into the IBM MFA product. So you can put CICS exclude that product. You put TSO exclude it. So you could actually just use the user ID and RACF password to log on from that point on. Or you could use pass tickets and let the product, the session manager, generate pass tickets and automatically log you on. You know, the choice is yours. The other good thing about session managers is that most of them you can customize the logon screens, which means that you can add instructions. Now you have to be careful. If you're in the financial industry and your PCI compliance applies, then obviously it's called you can't lead the witness. You can't put instructions on the screen. But if you're not, then obviously you can be as verbose as you like. And if you've got end users that aren't very IT literate, you can put loads of instructions on the logon screens and give them indications of what they should be doing and how to use it, which might, again, aid that pushback from the end user who's not very comfortable with this new way of working. So, how does it work? Well, we're going to do an example here, just inbound and compound. We're going to use RACF, but it could be ACF2 or top secret, and we're going to use the IBM touch token product, but again, you could be using other authenticators, as you'll see in a minute. So, if we're using the IBM touch token software and an Apple iPhone, you get your phone's been registered, so it's now active. You can have actually 5 users defined on each phone for some odd reason, with 5 different, obviously, fingerprints. Anyway, someone uses the phone, sticks the fingerprint, starts up the app, on the phone, puts their fingerprint on, it generates your token for you. You then put that security token, the separator, and a password, the RACF password, into your sign-on screen for your session manager. He will then call RACF like he normally does, and make sure the RACF bits are all okay. He will then pass it on to the security token, the MFA software, which in this case we're looking at IBM's MFA for ZOS, but as I say, there are others out there. And it will pass it on to your authenticator, which in this case is the touch token software that runs as a started task. But of course, as I said, with Radius and TOTP, that could actually be LDAP. It could be anything that supports those standards. So it may not be actually a mainframe authenticator at the end. So here we have, so mainly you've got 3 parts. You've got your RACF, you've got your MFA software, and then you've got your authenticator at the far end. Obviously that token gets returned, it goes back to your session manager. He says it's okay. He logs you on, you see your sessions. And of course, because you're using the session manager, he can go off, request a pass ticket from RACF, and he can use the pass ticket to actually then log you on automatically with a single sign-on and log you on to your applications. And you can do this, obviously, you can start up applications when you first log on, or you can just pick them later on in the day, but you don't have to do your MFA. And of course, being a session manager, it keeps all your states. If you go out for lunch and you log back on, all you've got to do is log on to your session manager just the once, and all your applications, all your CICS applications, etc., are still active. You're still in the same place. It's all good. You haven't got to worry about that logging on, all of those again, because obviously if you don't have a session manager and you go to lunch and you've got several emulation sessions open, then obviously ideally you need to lock all those down before you go to lunch, which means when you come back you're going to have to unlock them all with MFA credentials. So that's my recommendation, is that a session manager is the best place to implement this. Here's a few of the commands to see what it looks like. This is the AZFEXEC. Obviously, you can stick this into ISPF in the command line, and you will get back this nice screen, and these are a list of your factors that you've got installed. And as you can see there, there's a whole list here. And the bottom one, which we're interested in, which we're talking about, is the IBM touch token, so the Apple phone. So if I was to pick number 8, it will then give me another screen. And this gives me attributes about this particular factor. And if we go down, you can see I've got a token code length about halfway down. I've picked number 3, which means I'm saying it's going to be an 8-digit code that I'm after. The token period, I picked number 3, which is going to be 60 seconds. But I could have picked 15 seconds, 30 seconds. So, you know, 15 seconds, someone's got to be pretty quick on the old key in there to get that one in. And a bit further down, we got the plugin, the enable compound. So here we're saying yes. So I'm saying, right, I want to use this token, but I also want to use the RACF password as well. And because we're going to put 2 tokens in, I need a separator, because RACF and the MFA software needs to know which is which. The default is the semicolon. There's a couple of others, and obviously that's because, you know, depending on the tokens that you're using, it may use one of the separators part of the token, so you can change the separator so that it's a bit more flexible and it doesn't get recognized as part of the token that's being passed in. You can do the old LISTUSER command for security, and again tells you about the user, tells you about these factors information, and the big one here is this reg state, which is about 2/3 of the way down. Here it says provisioned. This is the factor. It's the TOTP1, which was the phone. If the reg state says open, then it means that although you've assigned this authenticator to this user, they haven't registered the phone. So they haven't registered it onto the touch token website and gone on and done the handshake of certificates. So if it says provision, then obviously it says that it is. So that's something that you can use to check. So if you've got someone using the phone, they say, oh, it won't give me a token, it won't allow me in. You can go and have a look and make sure that you've actually registered it correctly to the right touch token started task. So this was the good old session manager. This is, you know, standard user ID password. And this is the sort of thing that you could do with your session manager. Say most of them that you've got, you can configure the sign-on screens for the session manager. And this is one that I've just put together quickly. So you've got the security user ID, then you've got the security token, then you put the separator in, then you can put the password or passphrase, depending on what you've got set up there. And obviously you can still gives you the options of updating your RACF password and passphrase, because obviously you know, if you've got a policy of changing it every 30 days, then obviously you've got to have a way of updating it if it's expired. And of course, you make this as verbose as you like. As I say, if you're not under some compliance like PCI, you could put lots of chat in here, details about, you know, how to go and get the token, etc. Or you could actually just, if you are under PCI compliance, you could just have one big field that says security, and then just have a big long field, and you know, you'd have to email the end users and tell them exactly what they need to enter and what order and what separator to use, etc. And of course, if something goes wrong, as you saw in that flowchart sort of diagram where it's talking of each piece is talking to each other, there's going to be 3 different pieces: RACF, MFA, you've got the touch token software in that particular example. But they get very verbose if something goes wrong, and they can send you back lots of error messages. So if you've got a good old 3270 screen, you're a bit stuck for space. So hopefully your session manager will allow you to bring up another screen and get all the error messages coming out. Now, if you are PCI compliant, then there is an option in the IBM MFA that says you can set an option. And if that's the case, then you don't get any error messages back. It just says it didn't work. As I said before, with that particular compliance, there's no lead in the witness, so you can't give them any clues as to what they've done wrong. Obviously, they just follow the instructions that they've been sent incorrectly. But if you're not PCI, you can have lots of error messages coming out, at least give them a clue as to which bit they've actually entered incorrectly. So the other thing, as I said before, you can still use pass tickets. You can customize your session manager. You can use access to your applications using the pass ticket process, which means that you've got this single multi-factor authentication sign-on, and that will keep your end users slightly happier, that they haven't got to do all these multiple logons all the time. There is a fallback option that you can set, and basically that means that if the MFA software is not available, you can just go back to using just the RACF password. I did talk to IBM about this and thought, this isn't very good. This bypasses the system. Wasn't sure that the auditors would be very happy about that. And IBM just came back with, no, this is for test only. Never put this on a production system. And basically, it's when you're setting this up, you don't want to get caught in a catch-22 situation where you're implementing this and suddenly you can't log on because you've implemented something slightly incorrectly. And of course, you can't fall back to the old RACF password because you've turned on MFA, but you can't actually log on using MFA. So it's sort of catch-22. So this allows you in a test environment when you're setting it up, you put this option on, and then if you get caught out, you can just shut down the MFA, started task, as long as someone's logged on. Assumably the console's still there, and then you can carry on as before. Correct your errors and get it working. Auditing, as I say, big part of GDPR and any other compliance is going to be auditing. They're going to want to know who's signed in, what applications they've used, when and for how long. This is going to be key if you get a data breach. They're going to come in and start asking you all these questions about this. And it's also useful for yourself. You can actually say, oh, Bob used the system, but Bob's on holiday. So who's logged on as Bob? So you can sort of start looking at the usage of passwords and systems and stuff like that. And of course, the joy of having a session manager as your broker means that everything goes through your session manager. Every 3270 input stream and output stream will go through it, so you can see exactly who's signed in and what applications they're using. So it's the ideal vehicle for this type of auditing reports. And you can push these metrics out to any business analytical tool, and potentially combine it with other metrics as well. A few examples, Jasper, you can push it out to Jasper, which is an open source. There's two versions of Jasper, but there is an open source version, so therefore free. And you can see the activity here. So you've got the applications on the left, and then you can see this is the activity for a user called DDS. You can see when he's been on this system and not. And you can actually flip this around and actually say, right, okay, we want to only look at the AutoMon product or application. Tell me every user that logged on and when he logged on and when he logged off. So if you've got a particular breach and you've got an application that you're worried about, sensitive application, you can keep an eye on who's actually logging in to that application and when. So if they're logging into it during the night, you might become suspicious. And of course, Splunk. This is becoming very popular as a reporting tool and dashboarding, and you can see why. You get much prettier diagram coming out of it. And again, you can see this particular user, RXH. You can see the where he's been. He's been on the main menu. He's logged into the system when he was using TSO, when he logged out, and of course this could be a whole host of different applications. And again, you can swing it around the other way with Splunk as well and have it by application and see who's logged on and who's been using that particular application. So, as for a summary, you need to enhance your mainframe security. That's my suggestion to you. It needs to be part of your GDPR strategy. You need to make it easy to use, and my suggestion is that you use a session manager because that's your entry point. You can put it in as a single point, make it easier for the end user. IBM, they may add other MFA options going forwards. Other vendors may have other options. So if you've got to start making changes to your applications to cater for all this, then obviously that's going to be hard work and ongoing. So again, if you use a session manager, you know, you've only got to put this in one place, and you can add and remove options as you wish. If you've got your own applications that you've written and you've got to start adding all this in, then you're going to have a bit of a maintenance headache for yourself potentially. And that's me. So just over to any questions.
Okay, yes, thanks, Keith. If you have got any questions, then do you want to type them into the box now, and we get Keith to answer them? I'll just wait a minute or two, give people a chance. Okay, can't see any coming up. Well, in that case, I will move on, but if we get any that come in the next couple of minutes, I'll ask Keith while he's still with us. Okay, so yes, thank you very much, Keith. That was really interesting. This is quite complicated, this stuff, isn't it? It's anyway.
It can be, and it's the potential to try and make it easier. And I think that's what's putting off a lot of people. They look at it and they think, oh, there's lots of pieces I've got to install. I've got to make decisions about what authenticators I want to use. You know, you've got to have a company-wide policies. It needs a bit of thinking about on how you're going to implement it.
Yeah, it certainly does. Okay, well, thank you very much for that. Because we're a virtual user group, you can assume that you're getting a virtual round of applause now from everybody.
All right. Thank you, Trevor.
All right, thanks very much. Let me take control back now.
Okay.
Oops. Always. Right, should be able to see my screen now. Okay.
Okay.
Right, news then. CompuWare has updated its Topaz for Total Test, which is automating mainframe unit testing software. They've acquired a company called XA or product XA Tester from Exact Consulting, and the software enables developers to create unit tests for both batch and CICS-based programs written in COBOL, PL1, and assembler. And if you want to read more about that, there's a link on our website to the news item. What else? Articles. The series of articles on OSGI is continuing. So we've got OSGI Demystified 3.2, Declarative Services by Sam Catling, and that's on CICS Dev Center. We've got, oops, did I go to? No. Okay, there's another one, OSGI Demystified 3.1, Dynamic Class Loading, which is by Ivan Hargreaves, and that's also on CICS Dev Center. Then we've got enhanced support for policy system rules, now available in CICS TS 5.4 with APAR PI 92806 and CICS Explorer 5.4.0.11 by Andrew Warmby. Okay, more of these OSGI demystified. This is 2.4, which is boot compatibility by Ivan Hargreaves. And 2.3, OSGI resolution. 2.2, the mystery explained with boot delegation. And 2.1, OSG SCI. And again, links to all these articles are on our website. So, yeah, as always, can I ask for feedback about this meeting? You can comment on anything good and anything you think we can improve on for next time. Again, you can email your comments to me, and my email address is on screen at the moment, or you can use the Contact Us webpage. So, as you can see, plan for the future. Our next meeting is on the 13th of November, and we've got Jason Brosius, who's a senior software engineer at CA Technologies. And then the meeting after that is on the 15th of January next year, when we've got Tom Dunlap, who's CTO at Themis Inc., and he'll be looking at the CICS DB2 interface. Oh, and just a reminder that you can keep up to date with what's happening in the world of CICS and the virtual CICS user group website by following us on Facebook, Twitter, and joining the virtual CICS group on LinkedIn. And again, the URLs are all on the homepage of the website. That's fundy.com/virtual CICS. And in these days of social media, everyone likes likes. So if you can like us on Facebook, that would be brilliant. And if you are a tweeter or Instagrammer or anything, then can you use the hashtag virtual CICS. Okay, that's all for this meeting then of the virtual CICS user group. Can I thank you all for attending? I must thank Fundy Software, who sponsor this user group and make these meetings possible. And I'd particularly like to thank Keith Banham for his presentation. So that's it. Thank you all very much for joining the meeting, and I look forward to seeing you on Tuesday, the 13th of November. So thank you all very much, and goodbye.